These days I'm mentoring 5 or 6 young folks one-on-one about their career paths. And I'm finding myself coming back to the same piece of pretty controversial advice. So I'm going to shoot this in one take. I'm sorry if it's a little bit long. I don't plan on editing a bunch of it out. But the advice is this: go into work. And more specifically than that, because a lot of these young folks are either looking for jobs or they're in jobs, but they're looking for newer or better jobs. And there's this great organization called HopeWorks in Camden and Kensington here in Philly. And I've been working with these young folks, and I'm finding myself telling them, find a company that is hybrid or mostly remote, where the CEO and or other leaders in the company go into work. And if it's hybrid, 1 or 2 days a week, go in every day. If it's remote, but they have an office still, the people probably going in are probably the executives. I could be wrong here, but it's probably the exec team. The reason why I'm saying this is because I've always been dialed into my career on how can I stand out in a crowd to get the things that I wanted. And for me, it's undeniable that most people that are in a position to hire started their careers and started building their companies, especially the C-levels, in person. We actually kind of like the idea of having people together and whatnot. And for me personally, I like the idea of getting to know my team at a more intimate level. More on that later. But there's a longing there, right? I'm 50 years old. I spent 30 years of my career in offices for the most part. And my memories are attached to those things. And now I can't help but, and my company's fully remote, so nobody has to come to the office at all. But what I'm realizing is that that's an opportunity for really savvy young people. So if you can get into a job, or if you have one where everybody's remote, go in. The reason why is you will create connections with your C-levels in ways that no one else in your company will be. And that may not be fair, it might not be right, but it is the reality that we are human beings, and we cannot help that we are wired this way to want to mostly be connected to other human beings. And we can't help the fact that that shit is really hard to do over Zoom, and it's a heck of a lot easier to do in person. All right. So the reason why, so let me now tell you why I kind of came to this, and it comes to standing out. So I'm going to give you a few stories. The first one is when I got my scholarship. I was a freshman, and I was at college, and after my first semester, I started seeing people coming in and being like real studious, and they would hang out with me because I was always out in the lounge studying or whatnot. And they would come out and be like, oh, Will, I want to hang out with you. We're going to study together. And I'm like, all right, cool, dude. Let's do it. And over time, they'd be like, man, my parents are pissed. They got my grades for the first semester, and I might lose my scholarship, so I got to really step it up. So for a few weeks, they went back to bong hits and frat parties. And I was getting my study on still. So what I realized over time is a bunch of those people, there was about 6 of them on my floor, they weren't going to change their habits, which meant there's a likelihood that some of those 6 were going to lose their scholarship when I ended up after my first year having a 3.8. That was the thing. I went down to the financial aid office thinking, how can I stand out? A lot of people don't want student debt, right? I went down to the student aid office and I said to the woman at the front, I said, what happens to the money? And I'm like, here's 6 names of people. I bet you 2 to 4 of them lost their scholarships this year because they couldn't stop partying. I, on the other hand, stayed on my grind, did my job. I don't have a scholarship. What happens to the money? So you could hear her jaw almost hit the ground. She's like, no one's ever asked me that. She's like, I've been here for 15 years, whatever. No one's ever asked me that. She breaks it all down, got my full ride. That's how you stand out. You got to connect the dots and see what's going on around you. The other thing is when I got my first job, most people still to this day, they submit resumes. Back in the day we were in person. How do you stand out? You knock on a door. You knock on a door. Yo, I want to work here, right? Like you make sure that person can feel the intonation in your voice. I've never gotten a resume that made me feel some way about somebody. But I have had conversations that made me feel like, yo, that person. So how did I get my first job, which led to me building the company that I have? I had to find a way to stand out over all the other people who wanted the same job I did. I knocked on the door. I met the owners. They said, go do this task. I did the task. I came back the next day, got a job, and got my offer letter the next day. I jumped to the front of the line. That's making me think more and more and more about jumping the line. How do you in your career as a young person jump the line? I'm telling you, your C-levels, they're used to being around people. They're used to that engagement. They're used to that interaction. And back in the day, if you worked at Sear, there could be, 150 people here on any given day, or 120, that I could have met with. If you came in today, you're competing with like 2 people, 3 people. It's so much easier to make those connections. And I think your network, especially for younger people, we keep thinking that the size of your network matters. It doesn't. I think the thing that matters most in your network is who in my network is in the position to create a job for me. Because I'm talking to young people about getting a career. That's the true value of your network. And that's why I think if I lived anywhere near an office, and my company was remote, but I knew my CEO went in, I'd go in all the time. If my company was hybrid and they said, oh, we're going to work 2 days in the office, and I knew that my C-levels were working 4 or 5 days in the office, I'd go in almost every day. It's just reps, right? You're going to get closer to these people that will be in a position, even after you leave, to open doors for you. If you were applying for a job at one of my friends' companies, and I had worked with you close enough to actually get to know you, I can just call that CEO and go, yo, they're applying for a job at your company. They're amazing. Let me tell you these 3 or 4 things about them. And I get good vibes and energy off of them for whatever reasons. Why? Because we were around each other, right? You and me, we were around each other. And I know for people that are remote, they might go, man, that's really not fair. Yeah, I agree. It's not fair. But everything comes with its pros and cons. And if you're further along in your career, you already made relationships with people. And I bet you most of them you made were in person. And that's the last thing I'm going to leave you with. We got hundreds of people applying for the few open roles that we have. And it's been interesting. Over the last few months or so, I've seen a significant amount of our alumni apply for those jobs, and they jump the front of the line. And I've been processing that. How is it that an alumni can come in? It's like, because we already know them. And all those folks, we met in person. I bet you if you ask a manager or somebody that you perceive to be in a position of power, who are people in their network? And you ask them how they met those people, I bet you almost none of them were over Zoom. Not the strong, deep relationships you've created. So that's what I'm here to tell you guys. Like, if you're young in your career, my heart breaks for some of the young people that I'm chatting with, because I'm trying to help them find jobs and I see how talented they are. And I'm spending time with them one-on-one and I'm trying to help them come up. And I just kept coming back to that advice.